Good evening. It is February 3rd, and you are watching Google Rocks Hawaii. And we have a special guest today, Casey Asato, who is the Director of Curriculum and History and Social Science teacher at Seabury Hall. And I will turn it over to him in a second, but let me have the rest of our panel introduce themselves, starting with Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Colt, and I'm the librarian at Halikula Elementary School.
Jody?
Hi, I'm Jody Brown, and I'm the librarian at Kalama Intermediate School in Makawao on Maui.
Jasmine?
Hi, I'm Jasmine Dwan, and I'm a senior at Seabury Hall.
Okay, and last but not least, our special guest is Casey Asato. He'll tell us a little bit about himself, but Michelle made a special request for him to come on very mysteriously. We don't know exactly what she had in mind, but we will find out. But Casey definitely has had a lot of different experiences with global ed, and he'll share some of that. But I think, as he probably will tell you, unless things change, that he is really interested in questions and from us. So, but he does have a little presentation. So, Casey, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and tell us all about what you want to share with us?
Okay, great. Just to let you know that your voice dropped in and out just a bit, so I heard parts of what you said, but I think you want me to introduce myself. So yes. As Linda mentioned in the beginning, my name is Casey Asato. I'm serving as a Director of Curriculum at Seabury Hall. It's my third or fourth year in that role. I've been at Seabury for 9 years now, teaching history and social studies, global issues, economics, Japanese art and aesthetics, just a range of courses. And I guess last week or a week or so ago, Linda approached me and asked if I would be interested in joining a live chat session, and the topic was going to be on global issues. And that's an issue that's dear to my heart. I'm excited about it. I certainly encourage my students from freshmen through seniors to be interested in the topic. I consider myself an advocate of it for teachers as well, to broaden their own horizons, particularly here in Maui and in the state of Hawaii, because we are, as you know, the most isolated place on the planet. And I think that it's important for both teachers and students alike to be aware of what's going on globally in whatever field they're interested in. And that's sort of in a nutshell, I guess, my intro. And I'm interested in the questions that perhaps Michelle or Jody or Jasmine or Linda might have for me, and I'm happy to share maybe some of the unique opportunities I've been afforded throughout the years.
Could you tell us about Ukraine, the Ukraine experience? Not necessarily now, but when you feel like it.
Sure. I could go into that, but if there's any questions right now from any of you, I'm happy to respond. Yeah.
One topic that really interests me is ISIS and how you view everything that's going on in the Middle East and the religious-based conflicts, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I got to be honest with you, my area of specialty is more East Asia. I've lived, and in Latin America, I've lived and worked and studied both in Japan. I've traveled throughout East Asia, and I've lived and worked in Peru and traveled a bit in Latin America. So the Middle East and Europe are less of my specialty areas, and I haven't been following it as closely as I probably should. So I'd prefer not commenting so heavily on that.
Just speak on your expertise, then. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Jody, what about you? You might want to tell us your perspective, Jody. or do you prefer not to?
I'm extremely biased. I think that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Did you ask Linda because I'm an atheist? I don't know if that's why you asked or not, but
No, I'm just opening it up for whatever you want to share, Jody.
Is it because my whole family comes from Ukraine and Russia? I don't know.
Oh, fascinating.
There you go.
Okay, I'm muting.
Well, maybe that's a good segue to get into Ukraine. What part of Ukraine is your family from?
I'm a fifth-generation American, so darn it! If it weren't 2 a.m. in Maryland, I'd call my dad, but I don't know exactly.
For me, the particular program I participate in, the name has changed, and I sent out a tweet a while ago regarding it, but it is called, let's see the exact title here now, it's called Teachers for Global Classrooms. And it's essentially the same program I participated in a few years ago, but it, at the time, was called Teaching Excellence, let's see, TEA/International Leaders in Education Program is what it was called. And what it was an opportunity for American teachers to participate in a year-long program that was had sort of three major components, 3 or 4 major components. One was, you go to Washington D.C. It's run by the U.S. State Department's the Bureau of Education Affairs, and you become acquainted with the program. You meet other teacher leaders from around the world, Ukraine, various countries in Latin America, India, China, I mean, just all around the world. And you have an opportunity to have some exchange with them. And you can choose from among a list of countries that you might be personally interested in. Maybe you want to grow professionally in a particular area. Maybe you teach the history of South Asia, India, Pakistan, for example, Afghanistan. And so you can select those countries as a sort of a wish list. You may not get that particular top pick, but for me, Ukraine was within the top 3, and for me it seemed sort of I know this isn't probably the right sort of about the PC word to use, especially when you're talking about global ed and education, but for me it was sort of exotic in the same way that perhaps when I met Ukrainians in Kharkiv, that's where I was located. I got placed in Kharkiv, or in Russian, Kharkov, which is on the eastern border of Ukraine, sort of north of Donetsk, where the violence is taking place right now, and north, of course, of Crimea and the Black Sea, which is now, of course, taken over by rebels and supported by Russia. But visiting there, well, this program is you meet the people from various countries, and then you have a number of readings that you do on your own to learn about the various countries that you get placed in. Then the idea is, at least for the Americans, we prepared about a 2-week or so curriculum unit that we were expected to share, and sort of a professional development that we could offer the host institution teacher or teachers that we were paired up with. So I was paired up with an English teacher within the Boyko International School. It's like sort of a K through, it would be the equivalent of like a K through 12 school here, but very small, independent school. Progressive, interested in reaching out to other countries and expanding their curricular offerings. For example, they had a lot of exchange programs with the UK. The students are very well traveled. They've been to, for example, Australia, the US, and whatnot, various states. So that was sort of the highlight for the American teachers, being able to travel for 2 to 3 weeks to another destination, to another country, and to really learn and share sort of in a partnership, educational partnership with other teachers in various countries. For the American teachers that I, sort of this cohort that I was a member of, and just chatting with them, it was interesting to hear all the different stories on what their takes were on the various educational programs in the countries that they were placed in, to learn not just sort of the scope and sequence, but just sort of the rhythms of the day, of what education was like. I was fortunate during that time that I visited. I was sort of taken to various schools in Kharkiv, and so I got to see some amazing schools, stellar students, you know, and I'm not sure, like I heard different takes on what I saw. Some said, oh, it was just sort of like a show, you know, to highlight sort of like the best of Ukraine's education. Because what I saw was stunning. I said, well, if every school's like this in Ukraine, then, you know, forget China, forget India, the future is Ukraine, because everyone is Albert Einstein walking around. It was pretty stunning. But you know, talking to the teachers that I was with at the Boyko International School, they said, you know, we're kids, we have got kids just like every other school, and that's, for me, that was what made it real. Visiting and being housed in that school for, you know, I think it was 3 weeks, 2 weeks. Their students were similar to ours. You know, there's some that were, you know, sort of academic, some that were more into sports, some were into art. Education and stuff. So it felt sort of more of a real experience. But you know, of course, providing that professional development workshops for the teachers and the students that were there was a lot of fun. And since then, since my return back to the U.S., and it's been a few years, it's been really neat because in my economics class, I've tried to maintain that relationship with my partner teacher. And so what I did in my introduction to economics classes, and this was very exciting for me, was to have my students do like a video of themselves asking questions about the economic systems, you know, as you know, because Ukraine was part of the whole Soviet satellite, you know, the USSR, and so their transition from a command economy to a capitalist one, there's been some bumps along the road, and so my students, I had them just ask any question from a student to a student, you know, from students to students, to get their perspective on what it was like to add, you know, to record their questions, to send it off to the students in the Boyko International School, and to have them respond in a video message was a lot of fun. They made it a lot of fun. And so the students in Ukraine, in the Boyko School in Kharkiv, were able to practice their English and give meaningful responses, or thoughtful responses, back in English to our students about their experience living in Ukraine and the transition, their hopes and dreams, just like our kids have hopes and dreams, and what sort of the challenges they face. And again, this was all before, you know, the violence broke out in Ukraine last year. But that's like a highlight. Just, I mean, I'm sort of just talking off the cuff here, but just that's one experience of international exchange for teacher professional development that I wanted to share definitely tonight. And I did tweet about it a few weeks ago. And teachers can apply, middle school, high school, and stuff, to this program. Again, it's called the Teachers for Global Classrooms program. And I put a link in a document that, just some resources that Linda had said I could just share for future reference for you and others who might watch this broadcast. Right.
It's in the show notes, and I have the link underneath my lower third. It's bit.ly/GRH for Google Rocks Hawaii 64 notes. And yeah, we have several links there, and maybe more.
Yeah,
Casey, can I ask
yes.
a quick question?
Yes,
I think,
is that Michelle?
yeah. I think I saw your tweet, and that's what just made me curious about your the teacher. Sorry, what did you call it? The teacher collaboration or exchange, or?
Yeah, it's officially called now the Global Learning for Educators program.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Teachers for Global Classrooms. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong link.
Teachers for Global Classrooms. Yeah, that's what caught my eye. And then I noticed you were at Seabury Hall, so I said, hey, Linda, who's this Casey Asato? We have to have him on the show. But I'm wondering, well, congratulations to you to be accepted, because isn't this a pretty competitive program to be accepted into?
Well, it's, I mean, teachers apply to it, and there's a number of programs like this that are put out by the U.S. State Department, and of course, the National Endowment for the Humanities. I'm just speaking for the humanities, but there's National Endowment for the Arts and Sciences and stuff like that. There's various programs like this and opportunities for teachers for professional development. It is somewhat competitive, but I would encourage all teachers who are interested in this, in global education, and reaching out and connecting to other teachers around the world. I think it was an absolutely fantastic experience, and I have just all positive things to say about it.
I think it's a really neat opportunity too. Like you're saying, you as a teacher grew so much, as a professional. But then also to model this, I think for our students, it's really exciting, or it must have been for your students, to recognize probably some of the similarities they had, hopes and fears for their future, or even interest in music, or, however you connected. But then also just to learn about another culture. I think that it's so exciting to be able to do that. I wondered if you've ever thought of using Google Hangouts to connect with the kids?
Yeah, because of the time difference, it's literally on the other side of the planet. So when it's morning here, it's like nighttime there. So we did, yes. In fact, that was my original hope, was to have a live chat with the students, because there's nothing better than actually having that live chat. And they have technology as well at the school, and so that would be a nice way of doing it. Incidentally, I did actually teach the Introduction to Economics class when I was living in Peru. I taught that class to Seabury Hall students live using Skype. So it's something similar, a different VoIP platform, but it's very similar to Google Chat, the Skype.
Was your time in Peru part of the same program, or no? That was a different.
No, it was a different experience. No, there's
okay.
So I had a year semi-sabbatical where I moved to Peru. My wife's paperwork was going through, getting processed, and so I taught a couple of online Introduction to Economics classes from Peru. The time difference wasn't as bad. It was only 5 hours, so I would keep track of what time the class was in Honolulu, basically in Makawao, Maui, and then I would adjust my schedule in Peru by those 5 hours. And then so often I was teaching the class in the evening in Peru. Yeah.
Well, I just realized I made an assumption about you that could be wrong. Are you a local boy? Were you Maui born and raised, or no?
My father was, but I'm from Oahu. I'm from Kailua. Yeah. But I've spent a good chunk of my life living in different parts of the United States, the world, and stuff. So.
Sorry to ask so many questions. I'll stop now, Linda. But my last question is, do you think that because your family moved and lived in other places, that it kind of led you to continue that, enjoying other cultures and countries?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. My parents have actually not moved from the house that I was born and raised in. They've been there for over 50-some years. 60 years. But so my family hasn't moved so much. It's just sort of been me that I've lived in different places. And the one thing, I recently I had to write a paper. I'm actually a full-time student too. So
Tell us about that, Casey.
Oh,
tell us about that.
So I'm currently a doctoral student at UH Manoa in educational professional practice, and so we are it's a 3-year cohort program. I'm in completing year 1 of the 3-year program. We're connected with many other administrators in this cohort program on Oahu, on the Big Island here, whatnot. But it's an interesting program where it's not just theory, it's theory and practice combination. And so I'm excited about this program. But recently, one of the papers I had to write, I had to reflect on different values and the different people who have impacted my life. And this relates directly to your question, Michelle, because my parents, while they've sort of never moved from that house, they are avid travelers, and I think that rubbed off on, at least on me, and understanding others. In particular, my father was Maui born, Lahaina born and raised, but he met his wife, my mother, on the mainland. My mom is Haole, and so my father's Okinawan Japanese descent. When they got married, it was in the early 60s, and America was a different place back then, and so they faced some difficult situations and encounters with other people, and even on their wedding day, my grandparents didn't attend the wedding. So that idea of being open to others and to be mindful, tolerant, accepting is something that I think, while it wasn't overtly taught, it was an understanding that be respectful and mindful of other cultures and situations and whatnot. So I think that that's one influencing factor, sort of affecting the values. And I think that's kind of where I thought maybe this discussion might actually go, is what is it that, first of all, why is global education important? And I think that the discussion necessarily has to come to that. What are the values that we need to have to make sure that our students, our teachers, our schools are prepared for this 21st century? It's here already. And I think that we, speaking from the perspective of a teacher, perspective as a sort of administrator, perspective as a student, as a parent, we want our children to be competent, ethical, innovative, and I think in order to really, for them to find success, they have to also be sort of tolerant and open-minded, because, I mean, frankly, if you just skim the newspapers, and if you skim some of the books, I mean, Friedman, The World is Flat, and any of the other books that you come across in the literature, the world is getting smaller. Populations by 2050, we're going to have possibly 9 to 10 billion people on the planet. And I think that Fernando Reimers, I can put this in the literature link afterwards, but I think he does a nice job. He has a little article that he wrote. He's, if you're unfamiliar with Reimers, he heads Harvard's Graduate School of Education, the Global Educational Policy Institute, I believe. He's the founding person there. But anyway, he wrote this little article a few years ago called "Educating for Global Competence." It's a great article because it gets at really the heart of, what is it that we sort of need to teach, what's important, and I think, I mean, I don't want to give him a disservice to his article, but I think he kind of summarizes it into sort of three main points, and that is, in education, he goes into a lot of details, but really, we, in educating our future, our children, right, for the future, you have to really hit on three main points, and one is academic, so we have to be academically prepared, right? Secondly, you have to educate for affect, right? So the heart. So it's really getting in sort of, you're inspiring, you are motivating, you are getting the learner to think about and consider, why is this important, and then thirdly, it would be action, taking action. So you can kind of think about it, Reimer sort of summarized it as, academic, affect, sort of mind, heart, and action, doing. And I think when we think about 21st century learning, incorporating those three sort of components into the curriculum, whether it be global issues or it be whatever subject, math or English, I think that is going to be critical. And important to that discussion and that vision is having sort of these global competencies, having a broader perspective. And I think that is, in a nutshell, kind of my position. I definitely support that vision. I think I'll pause there. I can go more. I'll just pause there. Do you have any sort of comments or questions? Or
That's neat. Any questions? And you're going to put that in the show notes, right?
Yeah, I can. Oh, yeah.
Okay. That'd be great.
Yeah, I can. I've got a bunch of resources and stuff for global. Yeah.
Hey, Casey. In the program you're doing at UH in your cohort, are there any DOE folks in that cohort?
Yes. In fact, let's see here. I would say that it is maybe half, if not more. Yes. Yeah. And most are administrators. There's a few just just teachers. Maybe three or four teachers, but the rest in the cohort group's about 26. But there are members from HAIS. There are members from the DOE. Yes.
I really love what you're saying, and I'm embarrassed to tell everybody that I'm not familiar with his work. I know as an educator I shouldn't say that, but I guess there's just so much that's out there. And actually it resonates with something, I was talking with Brendan Brennan from UH Lab School today about teaming up on a project. And the project that they've started there, they're doing lots of projects on sustainability at UH Lab School, and I think it's specifically 8th grade students through high school, now want to look at how can they kind of have a ripple effect into the community so that what they've been doing at UH can have an impact at other schools, and then those students can take it home to their families. And if I understood him correctly, some of this was driven by the students. So I can see how UH has done exactly what you said. They have the foundation of the academics, and they're a project-based school. And then I think they've really inspired and motivated the students, because it's the students who are driving the projects, and they're taking action by sharing with us, and then kind of opening the door for our students, our 4th graders, to think about how they can move on. And I love this project, and I'm not really going to stand on my soapbox, Linda, so don't worry. But I'm just afraid that in the DOE, we don't have too many opportunities to engage in these types of projects. And I just wondered if you ever hear grumblings about that, or if people stay really positive in your program.
Are you referring to, for example, within the scope of Seabury Hall? Wait, which in scope of which program?
Oh, I'm sorry. In your cohort program, when you're with the DOE folks, it just seems like we're bound so much by testing and by educator effectiveness, and then by the determined curriculums that the DOE has selected, that we sometimes don't have the time and opportunity to grow these types of programs. And definitely, I know that global education is part of the DOE vision, because that is helping kids become college and career ready and preparing them for the world. but I don't always see how we really have the time and opportunity and professional development to support that. And I don't want to go down a negative path. So sorry, I just on the side was kind of wondering. I'm so excited by what you're talking about. This is really neat. So thank you. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no. And to answer your question though, I'm thinking of the individuals in the program who are teachers, classroom teachers. Well, one teaches ballet, so um, she she hasn't really talked so much about being frustrated in that regard, global education, and she's actually from South Africa. I'm trying to think, a couple of other teachers. I haven't heard so much about that, but then again, the focus of the program is a little bit more sort of on sort of administration. So, you know, I've heard other types of frustrations, but not specific to global education. Yeah, yeah. But to think, just to get back to your, the idea of professional development and opportunities, there are many opportunities out there. Another sort of program that I was fortunate to participate in, I was honored to participate in, it was the National Endowment for the Humanities. I went with a cohort from around the United States of teachers to Oaxaca, Mexico, and that was another wonderful opportunity for teachers in the humanities, art teachers, language teachers, history teachers, English teachers, to be able to participate in that it was absolutely a wonderful program. And I think half of this program I was hoping to try to, sort of touch upon that and those opportunities that teachers have out there. It is a bit of work. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna deny that aspect of it. It's quite a bit of work to put these applications together, but the rewards are also there. Absolutely fantastic experiences, and you're well taken care of. If the teachers are concerned about the financial constraints, perhaps that might sort of be an impediment to them actually applying to the programs. For example, the Teachers for Global Classrooms run by or offered by the U.S. State Departments, you're well taken care of. You don't have to worry about financial expenses so much. The National Endowment for the Humanities, they have these summer teacher institutes that I participated in. They also provide funding to help teachers because they know, they don't. Teachers aren't the big. We're not Wall Street.
Can you put that one into the show notes also?
Oh,
the
sure.
National Endowment for the Humanities. Thanks. That sounds great.
Yes.
I just added one in, Casey. I hope it's the right one, so maybe you can double check that.
NEH. Yep.
Yeah, NEH. And then actually, I did one of those grants a long time ago, and you're right, I felt very taken care of. Mine wasn't global education, it was actually on William Faulkner, and I went to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, but it was a really great opportunity, like you're saying still, to gather together with other educators and live in another part of the country. So yeah, there are so many. As I glanced quickly at their page, it seemed like many were geared towards university and college professors. Would you say that there's also opportunities, though, for even elementary through high school teachers?
Absolutely. The program that I was on, I participated on, it was, I'm trying to think, all of the members in that group were high school teachers, I believe. Yeah, and one was a librarian. Actually, I have to let you know, being that I'm speaking with librarians, I actually love the library sciences. I work all through high school. I worked at libraries. I worked in libraries in college, and I know you guys are special people. So I think you guys do awesome work. So
You actually did library work, a lot of research and detailed work.
yeah, it's good work. I'm trying to think. There's something else. Oh, other opportunities. I have in that list in there, but there's links such as the Asian Society has just a huge bank of resources for teachers regarding global ed, and it's not just specific to teachers interested in expanding their knowledge base and curriculum in Asia. And I posted a link up there, Asia Society. This one's Global Learning for Educators. I thought that would be more appropriate for this particular group. And they've got videos on there with Yang Zhao, for example, who's spoken at major national conferences and stuff on international education. And I think he heads like an international institute at the U of O. I think now I think he's a teacher over there. But he came out with a book recently about global learning for global ed. So. And there's a whole bunch of other links in there that teachers can explore. If they're interested in just something sort of more concrete, maybe for professional development credits and things like that, there's a number of programs out there. You can also, the University of Iowa, I don't have it up there, but they've got summer teacher institutes for global ed. Teachers College also has, you can get a certificate in global competency and stuff. And and I think the University of Denver also has a lot of stuff out there for international education, global ed stuff as well. But if you just do a little cursory, search, you can find some really great opportunities out there.
And I know Casey is always announcing in assembly about opportunities for students.
Yes, I really support the Pacific and Asian Affairs Council based on Oahu. They have wonderful opportunities for students to travel, wonderful opportunities for them to gain college scholarships, wonderful opportunities for them to gain scholarships to even participate in some of these travel opportunities. And they have, in the fall, they typically have the Academic World Quest competition, which is a lot of fun. It's a statewide competition. And the winner of the statewide competition gets actually a free trip to Washington, D.C., the whole team and their mentor. And you get to compete on the national level, which is a lot of fun. And it's about current events, types of issues related to global issues, global awareness. So that's a wonderful student resource that I would definitely recommend. Our students have been participating in that, at least since I've been at Seabury Hall. And in the spring, they have a Global Vision Summit. And you can go online to the PAC website, and you can read up on it as well. But they always have really neat topics. Natasha heads I think she's the director there now, running the high school programs, and she does a great job. And I know a lot of public schools participated in that. I think, was it last year, year before? Some school, was it in Hilo, I think, won it, and they got to go to Washington, D.C.
Tell us about your upcoming trip to Nicaragua.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this Friday we leave to Jinotega, Nicaragua, with 12 students, and we'll be essentially helping out an organization called Outreach 360, and they have offices in Jinotega, offices, I guess you could say schools. They're trying to set up schools, and also in I think the Dominican Republic. And what they do is they try to set up learning centers for the little ones, kindergarten through like 6th grade, 8th grade and stuff, to teach them basically she calls study skills, but they teach them also English, teach them Spanish. And what they do is they ask for volunteers from all over to help out with that. And so we've been doing this. This is our 3rd year at Seabury Hall, where we've been sending students over. And it's a tremendous opportunity because they also get to practice their Spanish. So once we get on the plane, we go into Spanish mode, and we just speak Spanish all the time with the kids. And so then the kids get to learn what it's like to be a teacher, the hard work that goes into preparing lessons for their little ones, the kids. And it's a lot of fun. It broadens their horizon, though. When the students return, whatever their level is in their Spanish competency, they are different people when they come back. They are different. They see that, Seabury Hall is a independent school. It's you know, it's not readily accessible to all because it is a bit expensive. We have I guess it's about 18,000 or so a year. So I think for some of the students to see students who don't quite have the means that they might have and their families might enjoy, their standard of living, seeing that difference, I think, is impactful. I know a number of students who have returned over the years who have said, "Wow, I want to be a teacher now," or "Wow, I see the world differently now." You can see it in their eyes, you know, when you're teaching kids and you see the light go off, or you just see that as a teacher. And if you've been in a class, you know what it's like. You know what I'm talking about. So that's really exciting for us. Yeah.
And
it's
that's part
it's a
of
week.
it's part of our winter program, where the entire school, not everybody knows that, entire school goes on a week of out of classroom experiences, and Casey is lucky to go with Mariangela, his wife. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
To Nicaragua. So that is fantastic. Yeah. Any other questions of Casey, or anything else you want to share, Casey? I see this Columbia University certificate program. That looks interesting, that you put in the show notes.
Yeah, because I thought perhaps, you know, I wasn't sure which direction this program would go, so I was thinking just have a few resources out there, actual programs that teachers could apply to for like participation, like the Teaching for Global Classrooms, or maybe they wanted like a more of a sort of a certificate that they could get onto their CV, or other types of resources. So I didn't know what really to expect, so I just put a couple different things up there. But yeah, I'm, you know, part of this too is also I think the importance of learning a foreign language, which it goes hand in hand with understanding others. You know, when you know, I'm not saying I'm at all like a polyglot, but I think I mean, I've studied Japanese. That was sort of my minor in college. And I lived in Japan for about 5 years, and my wife is Peruvian, so we speak Spanish. So I sort of abandoned my Japanese. A little sad, but hopefully I'll get back there one day. But I think when you study a foreign language, it forces you to see the world differently. There are expressions in other languages that cannot be expressed in the same light or same exact way as in English. And I think that's a beauty, and that I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that as a student of languages, I think that realization also is sort of part and parcel to the global education process. Yeah, because it forces you to see the world differently, expands your vision, your horizon.
Mm. Yeah. Not to go on the negative route, but what about that video that you did as part of your class? That was pretty neat.
Oh, the global issues class about human trafficking?
Yes, that was
an
interesting project.
So for my global issues class, I really try to put in the work of rhymers and stuff into action. So the students teach the class, actually become a student of theirs in the class. But this project we did last year was on human trafficking, which is a big business, billions of dollars. I think it was like $25 billion a year industry. And so our students last year in the class put together a professional grade video, sort of a PSA for the Pacific Gateway Foundation, which is an organization on Oahu. And if you go online, you can actually see their student video where they are sharing about human trafficking and just the horrors of it here, sort of globally, but also here in the state of Hawaii. I think it's pacificgateway.org, but I can share that link in the video. But that sort of is an example of sort of Reimer's academic affect and action. That's, I think, sort of in play. I was hoping to get that, and I think the kids did a great job.
They did. I think they made a difference.
I mean,
beyond the classroom.
It was good. It was good enough for the organization to post it as a video on their website. So that was exciting. And they did a lot of community work too. They were posting information throughout the island and Lahaina and down in Paia and Kihei and Wailuku and Kahului and stuff. So that was good. I thought I heard Jasmine. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Do you encourage students in high school to do like study abroad or student exchange programs? Because I know some students at Seabury have done that.
Yeah, I actually, you know, if I had my druthers, I would definitely encourage that, and also encourage other students and other schools to have exchanges with Seabury. I think it enriches. I think it enriches the student body. I know it's a challenge to do because of our location, you know, sort of very remote, and there might also be like sort of financial constraints. But I think when and where possible, it's something that I view as a positive, not a negative.
Thank you.
I definitely encourage students to, if not in high school, in college, to study abroad.
That brings up a question I have for Linda and Michelle. Do either of you belong to LiveX, Librarian Exchange? Do you use that?
Didn't hear
No.
about it.
I've been trying to set up an exchange for, well, you know, when Danica graduates, she's going to be 16, so she wants to do a gap year. And originally, the original plan was to invite her parents, which is really sweet, but I think that's going to fall through. And I was going to try to find a librarian in exchange, and Matt was going to teach math wherever we ended up. We're having a really hard time, you know, getting the locations to all work together. So, but I've been trying to put together a librarian exchange through LiveX for quite a few years, and I guess I can let you guys know more about it on a different Google Hangout if you're interested.
Definitely.
And, yeah.
And
I don't know if it'll work. But.
What's the gap year? Is that like where someone takes a year off before they?
Yeah. She's planning on, when she applies to colleges, she's planning on deferring for 1 year, with the intent of doing an internship with a movie studio or something like that. So that's the theory. We'll see what really happens.
Well, she's active in filmmaking.
Yes, yeah, she's very active.
That's exciting. I want to know more about that too. You know, that idea of a gap year isn't very, well, it wasn't common with my high school friends. I know we were all on this college track. And when I was actually in college on an exchange, I went to Oxford for a year. And during our Oxford schooling, we had 1 month off in between terms where the expectation was that we would travel around Europe. And when I was traveling, I couldn't believe how many youngsters, like high school students, college students, were also traveling, especially from Australia. And so I don't know if it's still true today or really what economic group those folks came from, but it was just part of life that they would graduate from their secondary school and then take time to travel and see the world. And I thought, exactly like you're saying, Casey, it opened their minds and their perspectives. And what was eye-opening for me was how many people in Europe viewed Americans as close-minded and ignorant, and I guess it just made me kind of rethink even my growing up. I didn't mean to be ignorant and close-minded, but you know, I didn't grow up speaking multiple languages, and yet the people I met in Europe, almost all of them spoke at least 3 or 4 languages fluently. And I just think it's kind of interesting. And that actually leads me to a question, too, because I never thought of myself as living with blinders on. But, you know, I used to teach high school, and I love my high school students. But I think that, and sorry, Jasmine, this is a big generalization. So I'll just say it's myself and the high school kids I know. You know, they're so focused on, you know, popular music or the styles or trends of the time. I do notice that Seabury is very different because, like you said, Jasmine, you've had the friends who traveled abroad. And Linda, remember the other gentleman who came on the show? I think he was a freshman or sophomore, and very interested in world politics last year. I just can't remember his name.
Thomas.
Thomas Hayashi.
And then, you know, how you folks put together the TEDx and you could speak on issues. So you definitely don't follow my generalization. But my long story, and here's my question, Casey. For those of us who do have, you know, high school students, middle school students with blinders on, how do we open them to consider taking other languages or even researching other cultures or countries or wanting to go there?
Yeah, a great question. I think something you touched upon earlier, and that was, you know, I don't work within the DOE, so I don't have that. You mentioned earlier you felt like, from your perspective, things that you've heard from other teachers you've worked with, that they feel like they're somewhat constrained. I mean, is that accurate? What am I accurately describing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I can understand the difficulties and the challenges if there's certain sort of curriculum or curricula that they feel obligated to teach to get through the material, especially if there's high stakes testing, right? In order for these kids to move on, graduate, and stuff like that. I totally get it. You know, I spent some time in New York. I was at, you know, a school where there was high stakes testing, you know, in New York City, and it was. It's tough. How do you get through the curriculum, but also sort of honor that desire to try to inspire and get them interested in learning these foreign languages and want to study abroad and learn about these other cultures? You know, I guess, you know, we all do what we sort of can and within our own realms, you know. And I think there's been an analogy made that teachers are sort of like their own king or queen in their castle within the four walls of the classroom. If you have, I think, leadership within the school that allows sort of that creativity, that allows the opportunities for teachers to teach their passion, and yet still meet the obligations that they're required to by federal mandate or state mandates, I think that's where you find it. I think where there's a will, there's a way. And each teacher approaches it in his or her own unique fashion. There's ways of interweaving it into the curriculum. I think, you know, there might be a more natural sort of avenue for, you know, humanities teachers, but there are options, even, you know, connections you can make internationally, especially with science. I mean, just look at the International Space Station. It's a combination of various efforts by countries around the world. Yeah.
Neat. Any other questions of Casey or comments? I learned a lot, Casey, and I'm with you every day. That's awesome.
Well, it's kind of interesting. You know, I kind of feel like I've just been blabbing, but
no, not at all.
it's kind of interesting. I didn't know really. It's my first time doing a Google Hangout like this, but sort of observing myself, I realized, yeah, I am passionate about sort of global ed, because you know, I see myself smiling a lot, and I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to share it. It's just, I think that, I guess if anything, thank you for at least listening to
Oh,
me.
no. What will happen is it will be archived, and it actually goes straight to YouTube, and you just don't know what the impact will be. We'll find out. Sometimes it's like right away, sometimes it's later. So really appreciate you coming on. To be honest, I didn't think you would, so I was really happy when you said yes. I said to Michelle, well, I'll try, but I don't think so. And then you said yes. Whoa, yay! Today's my lucky day.
I remember in that conversation, I said, well, this is something that's kind of dear to my heart, so it's...
Hit the right button.
If there's an audience, right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
I'm so excited, Casey. And like Linda said, you know, other folks will watch the show later, and, you know, in some ways we won't even be aware of the ripple effect. But I feel like you've given us so many great resources, and I'm definitely going to share with my kids' school. And they go to a really teeny private school here on Oahu that believes that learning outside the classroom is as important as learning inside. I like your week, Linda. I want to know about that, the out-of-classroom experience. Yeah, so my kids are actually... going to New Zealand in a couple weeks, and
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, I'm really excited for that. They'll have an opportunity to meet up with the Worldwide Voyaging Society, and then go to visit some schools and even some Maui students. So I think it'll be a great trip for them, and I'm hoping it will begin to do exactly what you're saying, you know, open their eyes and
So
minds to
when you
other.
say your kids, are your personal kids or
Oh
the
yeah, my 16-year-old and 12-year-old actually, and they're staying in youth hostels in New Zealand, and then they're doing quite a few service projects when they're there for. I've never heard of these birds. There's blue penguins. They're going to build boxes for blue penguins and other things. I'm jealous. I can't
Well,
go
do
too.
you think they'll come on Google Rocks and tell us about it?
Well, that would be really fun. Yeah.
Let's plan it. Let's plan it. I'm always searching. So are you, Michelle.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Well, we're headed toward the top of the hour. It's been a fantastic hour. I wanted to make a really quick announcement about Jasmine. She's going to be on Hikino, the subject of a profile by Maui Waina kids, students. So nothing to do with Seabury as far as the making of the profile, but it'll be talking about her work in math. So that's on Thursday at 7:30, Hikino. Yeah, be sure to tune in for that. Had to
Right
put that
on.
plug in, Jasmine.
Congratulations, Jasmine.
Yep. So, without further ado, then, unless we have any other parting comments, we'll go ahead and say aloha for now. Usually, Casey, we have a little debriefing after, so don't hang up right away. We
Oh,
probably
okay.
we might have some questions. So,
Oh, sure.
yeah. So
And
we.
Linda, is Jasmine back next week too?
I'm sorry, I messed up. She will.
Oh,
Well, I'm trying to get her on regularly. Maybe she'll be on next week, but definitely 2 weeks from now. She is actually putting a show together for us with the Canvas. It's the Hawaii's first student working space.
okay.
And for that week, which is the 17th, we'll be
Okay.
meeting at 6
Okay.
because they're going to be doing a tour for us. We're actually going to be,
Wow.
yeah, seeing what's happening in that space.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's put together by students. So yeah, so that'll be interesting. But next week will be a Q&A for the Google for Education Hawaii Summit. So we'll have a couple of EdTech team people coming on and doing some Q&A for us. So yeah, lots of interesting things coming up. Thank you again, Casey, for coming.
Thank you.
It
It
was
was a real pleasure to meet all
awesome.
of you too. Yeah.
Yes,
And if you guys have
really
questions later on, please, you can email me. Just get in contact with me. I'm happy to help out anyway.
awesome. Sounds good. So I'm stopping the broadcast now. And
Thank
aloha,
you.
everyone. See